Alright, you and I are watching our main character inherit a top global corporation, but then he instantly sells it for 800 billion to their biggest rival. Next, our guy drops 8 billion on 3 rare swords, 10 billion just to own a meteorite and 100 billion on a totally abandoned mine. Everyone thinks he is a spoiled rich kid losing his mind, but only he knows the truth. In 10 months, spiritual energy will revive, ferocious beasts will mutate, ancient gods will return to Earth, and countless cosmic races will invade. When that happens, money will literally become the most meaningless trash. These insane purchases, they are his ticket to becoming an overlord in the apocalypse. Right now, on the top floor of the North Star Group headquarters, inside luxurious conference room, our MC chills in the chairman's seat, staring down at the dozens of anxious shareholders. He casually announces he is going to sell all the shares he owns, and get this, North Star is currently one of the most ridiculously profitable companies on the planet. Everyone naturally thinks he lacks vision, except for Leonard, the group's third largest shareholder, who just smiles a very suspicious smile. Young guys have their own wild ideas, Leonard says smoothly, cashing out early to live happily is not bad either. Outwardly, this old man seems to be super supportive, right? But in reality, his actual goal has always been crushing the main family to seize absolute control of the company. So, hearing that our guy wants to sell his shares, he is practically holding back tears of joy, looking at their reactions. Our hero just finds it totally hilarious, because as a reincarnator, he already knows that in 10 months, Earth will undergo a brutal transformation. Heaven and Earth's spiritual energy will flood back, and the 3,000 legendary paths will reappear. Society will completely collapse, and cash will absolutely have zero value. Then, in his past life, our hero actually built North Star Group from scratch, but when the awakening hit, he was just one single step too late, so he suffered endless brutal hardships. After 10 long years of purely surviving, he eventually died horribly, eaten alive by a mutated beast. The absolute trauma of his awful past life is permanently burned into his memory. In this life, reborn to change it all, he has 10 crucial months to prepare. He just needs to liquidate everything into fast cash right now. Armed with the future memories of his past life in his head, he is going to absolutely crush everyone, becoming a supreme powerhouse when the spiritual energy revives, snapping his mind back to the present. He stares right at a mocking Leonard and calmly says, "Uncle Leonard, you have always wanted these shares, right? How about I just sell every single one to you?" The second he drops that bomb, the entire room is speechless. Even Leonard completely freezes up for a long second. Inside, the old man is secretly screaming with joy, but he keeps his poker face tight, pretending to hesitate. He replies, "All right then, let us hear your asking price for the whole lot." Our guy does not even blink before firing back, "The whole package for a flat 800 billion. Leonard's eyes twitch in surprise. Honestly, you cannot blame the guy for being hooked. 800 billion is practically pennies for this empire. It is a massive bargain. Leonard rubs his chin and tests the waters. "I can only do 400 billion in cash. For the rest, will you accept real estate assets to cover the difference?" Our hero just laughs internally. In his past life, Leonard got insanely lucky. The guy owned some wild, unexploited land up in the mountains, and under that exact land, an SS-grade secret realm. Come December, this hidden zone would finally show itself, and using that same realm, Leonard previously built his entire family empire. He turned them into the most powerful family in the country, but our guy knew exactly that Leonard was totally broke on cash. To buy all those shares, he would have to trade real estate instead, and right on cue, as predicted, Leonard handed over a massive list of properties, right there among them the Southern Grand Valley land, the ultimate prize. So in just a few short minutes, they closed a massive 800 billion deal. By tomorrow, 400 billion hit his bank account. A slight smirk crossed our main character's face. The real master plan was officially in motion. He ordered his butler to prep the private jet immediately. That very afternoon, he flew straight to Britain, meeting a collector named Johnson. The goal, 3 absolute treasures, 3 ancient bronze weapons. Trust me, these 3 blades carry a seriously mysterious background right now. They just look like rusty scrap metal, but just wait until the world's spiritual energy fully awakens. That rust fades, making them evolve into unmatched legendary blades. Plus, they can literally merge into a heavenly sword formation, a brutal setup he witnessed in his past life. It's insanely overpowered, perfectly blending crazy offense with absolute defense. Enough to crush millions of wild beasts alone. But here's what makes it truly crazy. The heavenly sword formation, made by these specific 3 blades, is completely unfinished. The true, original version of this heavenly formation actually needs 6 bronze swords. The missing 3 are held by a domestic billionaire back home, so his first priority is grabbing these 3 blades. Currently stuck overseas, hours later he pulled up to a massive estate near London. Finally meeting Johnson, he demanded the 3 bronze swords immediately, then got right down to business, skipping all the small talk. Johnson totally agreed. Following the collector's lead, the two stepped into the secure vault inside the mansion. Wearing gloves, Johnson carefully pulled a bronze sword straight from the glass display. He gently presented it to our guy. Right then, an incredibly heavy ancient aura hit him instantly. The weapon measured 3 feet 6 inches, completely covered in thick bronze patina. You could barely see the engravings, but from that very first look, he knew absolutely this was the exact prize he needed. Without even blinking, he dropped his offer, £10 million, pack all 3 swords. Up right now, Johnson froze. He was totally thrilled with the cash, but still faked some hesitation, staying completely silent. Our guy just stared at him and instantly jacked up the offer, £30 million. Johnson was absolutely floored inside, realizing this buyer had essentially infinite money, so he purposely played hard to get, rambling about the sword's supposed ancient history. All these words basically translated to just one simple thing for our guy: pay more money. Not wasting another single second, he interrupted, 30 million flat. If you decline that, then we are completely done. You and I both know Johnson couldn't raise the price anymore. The wealthy buyer standing there was nobody's fool and wouldn't blindly increase the bid forever. He smiled widely and frantically accepted the deal. Our guy didn't say anything else, just tossing a premium black card right at him, swiped it, grabbed the swords, and he leaves. That seller is definitely secretly gloating right now, thinking he just scored a massive bargain. But little does he know, in 10 months these 3 bronze swords will become one of Great Britain's absolute top 5 treasures. Completing step 1 of Arthur's master plan, our guy returns to his crazy 2,000 square meter luxury villa, sipping Celeste wine, $200,000 a bottle. By the way, he stares at the 3 bronze swords on his table, lost in thought. In his previous life, the other 3 missing bronze swords were only dug up from King Arthur's tomb. After the spiritual energy fully awakened, they were combined into a supreme battle formation, strong enough to resist ferocious beasts and the primordial tribe. But shortly after that massive spiritual energy revival, the primordial true king finally descended, and the people controlling that ultimate formation, they betrayed humanity, surrendering to the primordials, massacring millions on a massive scale. The entire nation plunged into absolute chaos and despair. Thinking about this dark past, Arthur steps out onto the balcony, looking down at 10,000 city lights at the foot of the mountain. Raising his fancy wine glass, he whispers softly, a toast to the entire nation, wishing for true peace across the land and prosperity for all the people. The very next morning, up in the 3rd floor living room of the estate, the grand doors are pushed wide open. His loyal assistant, Simon, rocking a sharp suit, respectfully steps inside. Right behind him are 3 very oddly dressed individuals. A braided guy Rocking an eye patch, a smiling chubby bald dude, and a young woman with striking beauty, Mr. Arthur, Simon says respectfully, these three are the exact people you requested. He steps aside, unintentionally but perfectly blocking any potential attack angles from these three strangers. Arthur glances over and gives a slight nod. This exact assistant followed him for years in his previous life, always fiercely loyal, even sacrificing his own life just to protect Arthur from ferocious beasts. A truly dedicated guard. Our MC signals for the trio to take a seat, casually asking for the young lady's name. The girl unceremoniously flops right onto the luxury sofa. You can call me Shirley, she says. That guy looking straight like a Caribbean pirate over there is my senior marshal brother. Thomas, and the bald guy, that is my junior marshal brother Rocky. Without spouting any nonsense, she continues, Mr. Arthur, we already completely understand your mission, that King Arthur's tomb you want to find. According to our deep analysis, it is an incredibly dangerous place. Even though Master Oakley and Master Easton are out of the country and cannot participate in this specific operation, we believe we will not fail. Arthur smiles faintly at that confidence. Good, I will not be long-winded either. What I need to find is, very quickly, both parties agree on a final price, 500 million, to retrieve those remaining 3 bronze swords from King Arthur's legendary tomb. After seeing the 3 tomb raiders off, Assistant Simon stands right by Arthur's side, his eyes revealing deep suspicion and worry. Mr. Arthur, can these people actually complete the mission? Arthur leans back against the sofa, perfectly calm. No need to worry, stick with me here, because success or failure does not matter. If they fail, they will absolutely seek out Master Oakley and Master Easton. In the tomb raiding world, reputation and keeping faith are the absolute most important things. Simon is startled, but immediately understands the play. He continues, the northern side has been arranged. 2:30 this afternoon. A chopper will touch down right here to pick Arthur up. His assistant confirms every single instruction was passed along. Things are running perfectly. You and I know he is ready. He smiles and nods. Dead on. 2:30. A massive chopper touches down right. The estate, the doors slide open. A middle-aged guy steps out. He has sharp hair, rocking light green spiritual armor, looking absolutely fierce, and his eyes literally radiate divine energy. This guy right here is Hugh, a close ally of Arthur's parents. Just like Simon in his past life, he loyally followed Arthur until making the ultimate sacrifice. They board the chopper together, heading straight north. Less than 2.5 hours later, they finally reach the drop zone. Watching the chopper land, a whole group rushes forward, leading the pack. A man in a tunic, gray hair sure, but his eyes hold a crazy, intense metallic glint. The second Arthur steps out. He runs right over, showing total respect. Mr. Arthur, we have been waiting for you for ages. Arthur just nods, glancing at the older guy. Uncle Gideon, another incredibly loyal ally, fully in charge of managing the northern branch. He has serious pull with local officials and the underworld alike. Hooking up with these northern factions today was entirely set up by him. 10 minutes later, inside a private hotel meeting room, Arthur sits down with about 10 people. These guys are all hardcore veteran generals who fought beside his parents, absolute loyalists of North Star. Once Arthur sold his shares, they immediately ditched the company. To back him up, scanning the room, he speaks first, gathering everyone here. Today, I need to clear some things up. You are all veterans who have followed North Star for years and know me well, so you guys definitely know I am not the type to act without a plan. Regarding that stock sale, Uncle Gideon quickly nods along. We completely understand, Mr. Arthur's skills, North Star's massive growth recently. Yeah, we have all seen it firsthand, but we honestly cannot figure out why you would dump those shares. Now, Leonard's shady intentions are super obvious. The others totally agree, even though they back his bold move. Plenty of them still stay quiet. 15 long seconds pass before Arthur speaks. As for the stock sale, I really cannot explain the details right now. Long story short, you will all get it eventually. Let us drop that topic entirely. Now on to the second issue, the real reason I came up north today. I need you all to keep this next part completely off the record. Everyone nods. In agreement, Arthur knows these guys were rock solid in his past life. Even facing actual death, they never betrayed him. Listen up, our real goal is pushing deep inside the great northern forest to find millennium-old lightning wood. This legendary wood sits right in the forest center, perfectly intact after taking thousands of lightning strikes, still standing strong, but for the public. We are telling everyone we want to build a great northern forest tourist resort. So we gotta send out a massive survey team. My main concern, Leonard, if that guy interferes, it becomes a huge problem for us. Wrapping up his speech, Simon throws a PowerPoint up on the big screen and starts. They explain the target. The screen lights up with an image of a massive tree. Over a meter across, the bark is charred black from lightning strikes, but miraculously, the wood hasn't rotted at all. The trunk stands perfectly straight, piercing the very sky. The surrounding area is completely barren wasteland. It's as if this single tree drained all life from the ground. Up in the north, locals have this ancient belief that lightning wood repels evil. This massive tree survived countless brutal lightning strikes, yet somehow it stands firm, refusing to die. Our MC predicts this rare treasure grows right in the center of the great northern primeval forest. That is an extremely dangerous, fully uncharted zone. Been fully explored, so extreme caution is completely necessary this time. Right after the orders are given, the meeting ends. The veteran generals immediately rush out quickly, handling the arrangements. Fast forward a few days, you and I see Arthur outside the great northern forest. He stares into the endlessly dark woods, his heart racing with intense emotion. Once the spiritual energy awakened, countless terrifying ancient monsters spawned here, and energy completely erupted. Elite cultivators charged in, claimed that thousand-year-old lightning wood, and forged it into an absolutely overpowered divine weapon. But tragically, those same heroes eventually betrayed humanity. Mr. Arthur, let us move. Hugh stands respectfully in front of Arthur, introducing his elite squad. They are all seasoned veterans, total locals, and they will absolutely keep their mouths perfectly shut. Arthur just nods silently. But then, sir, we have an update from the Trenton auction house. Once the area clears, Simon steps up, whispering, "Auction house." Arthur's interest instantly peaks. These places always hold rare relics. Right now, just expensive paperweights, but once the world's energy officially awakens, certain relics will absorb that energy, transforming into legendary divine items. Since Arthur cannot locate the lightning crystal out here just yet, he decides to pivot back to Trenton. 2 hours before the massive event begins, Arthur and his assistant pull up to the venue. Word on the street is the items tonight are incredibly ancient artifacts, drawing heavy hitters from all across the globe. 1 hour later, the hall is completely packed. Rich magnates huddle up in tight groups, gossiping away but listening closely. What gets Arthur hyped is a rumor about a 5,000-year-old meteorite hitting the auction block. See, in his previous life after the Great Awakening, normal artifacts were completely useless, but jade that absorbed pure spiritual energy. That stuff became spirit stones, fueling cultivators with endless raw power to easily boost their levels, making them insanely valuable. But that specific meteorite everyone is whispering about, Arthur wants it desperately. In his first life, Leonard hoarded several of these rocks, using the Grand Valley secret realm to forge them into absolute weapons. This made the Leonard family's overall power skyrocket later, crowning them as a top 10 national powerhouse. Now, Arthur silently promises himself to secure this meteorite no matter what. At first, he figured absolutely nobody would bid on some random space rock, but surprisingly, some completely arrogant fool actually tries to challenge him for it. All right, the auction finally starts. The host confidently steps up. Spotlight blasting right onto him. He spreads his arms wide, flashes a giant smile, and bows deeply. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for attending tonight's massive event. Hosted by the legendary Empire Group, I am Marcus, and it is my absolute honor to be the host of today's auction. The intro dragged on for 10 minutes and honestly sounded incredibly boring. Afterward, an elegant girl in a stunning cheongsam pushed the very first auction item right onto the stage. It was a tricolor vase from the medieval era, pure Silk Road history. The starting price, 5 million. Boom. The auction began and the hall went wild. Tricolor pottery is a classic medieval symbol. It is a literal dream. Treasure for collectors, but to our MC, completely useless. In his past life after the spiritual awakening, these vases did absolutely nothing. Zero transformations, so he did not even bother bidding. After a few intense rounds of crazy bidding, some rich tycoon snagged it for 12 million. The second item dropped, a pair of Bronze Age jade pendants. The experts claimed they were the oldest jade pendants ever discovered. The starting price was 1 million. Shockingly, silence, nobody bid. The reason was painfully simple. Everyone figured jade could not possibly survive thousands of years intact. They just had to be total fakes. Just as the sweating auctioneer was awkwardly preparing to skip it, he suddenly spoke up. 1 million, I will take it. Everyone looked at him, erupting into loud mocking laughter. But he did not care. He knew just how ridiculously valuable this specific pair of Bronze Age jade pendants would become. Later on, for the next 40 minutes, the items were just paintings, calligraphy, and old antiques. Our guy was not interested at all. After a boring stretch, the second to last item finally arrived on stage, the penultimate treasure of the day. You and I know exactly why everyone showed up. It is no exaggeration to say this thing goes way beyond the concept of normal antiques. Its value completely immeasurable. Marcus kept his elegant smile, feeling the room's atmosphere finally heating up. He clapped once and two stunning girls in cheongsams pushed a stand onto the stage. On it sat a green bronze box. Marcus slipped on sterile gloves and under everyone's totally focused gaze, slowly opened the bronze box to reveal the item, a reddish-brown stone the size of a basketball, weirdly shaped and giving off a faint heat. He was completely startled. Inside that stone on the screen, from its shape to its unique aura, it looked exactly like the meteorite Leonard accidentally bought back in his previous life. Marcus spread his arms wide and announced mysteriously, "Ladies and gentlemen, this stone is far from simple. Based on our expert appraisal and checks against archaeological data, this is a meteorite from 5,000 years ago, plus it contains 80 entirely unknown trace minerals. The starting price is 20 million, with every bid going up by at least 2 million. The auction begins." The words barely left his mouth before our MC moved. 30 million. The whole hall froze in shock. Someone angrily shouted out, "What kind of crazy bidding is that? 32 million. He didn't blink. 50 million. The other guy was furious. "I am Sean, chairman of the Horizon Group. Give me some face here. 52 million. That threat made the other bidders too scared to follow. Horizon is Trenton's second largest group, trailing only North Star. But our MC, he didn't care at all. He raised his paddle. 80 million. Sean couldn't stand the anger and screamed to save face. 90 million. The entire hall fell dead silent. Everyone nervously looked back and forth between him and Sean, secretly thinking, absolute madness. 1 billion, 2 billion, 5 billion. The tycoons just stared at Arthur in pure shock. Sure, they had billions, but nobody threw cash around like this. Even Marcus stood there completely stunned. Decades in the auction game, and he had never seen a bidding war reach these insane heights, because realistically, that meteorite was worth 50 million tops. Sean gritted his teeth. 2 billion was all the liquid cash he had, and 5 billion maxed out his father, but he refused to look weak. 8 billion. He screamed to normal people, 8 billion is an absolute fantasy, and honestly, even 2 billionaires that is heavy damage, but for the Horizon Group, they could just manage. Arthur was slightly surprised, but still coldly raised his paddle, 10 billion. The whole room went dead silent. You and I could hear a pin drop right then. Sean's face drained of color as he completely slumped into his chair, but a second later he just snapped 10 billion for a worthless rock, truly North Star's biggest fool. The number one idiot in the entire nation. Yeah, the whole crowd agreed with him. But Arthur, he was extremely satisfied with tonight's haul, just as he turned to leave. Marcus suddenly called out, "Wait a moment, Mr. Arthur, our chairman wants to see you immediately." Our MC did not refuse, following Marcus straight into the Empire building up on the top floor, inside a luxurious office. A refined older gentleman stood up with a warm smile. Arthur just nodded, casually taking a seat. The man introduced himself right away. "I am Stephen, chairman of Empire." Arthur gave him a faint glance. You see, Stephen is a national business legend, single-handedly building the Empire Group, constructing this very building, and basically monopolizing the entire antiquities industry. We are talking transaction fees alone reaching trillions every year. When the spiritual energy revived, Stephen was the first to discover the hidden clues, hoarding spiritual jade, and eventually becoming the man possessing the most treasures nationwide, even providing massive backing directly to the government. I invited you, Mr. Arthur, because Marcus mentioned you are deeply interested in ancient relics. I have a few special items here that might actually meet your exact needs. Stephen sat down on the sofa, personally pouring Arthur some tea, and then pulled out 2 exquisite wooden boxes. He popped them open, and inside were over a dozen dark red wooden pills, finger-sized, perfectly oval, and honestly looking exactly like those legendary elixirs from cultivation novels. Arthur's pupils contracted instantly, his heart surging with excitement. These wooden pills look totally useless, but they are actually ancient elixirs completely drained of spiritual energy. Once the spiritual energy fully revives, swallowing them will massively boost any cultivator's realm. Listen when those primordials gather ferocious beasts and the deadly flood dragons descend. These exact elixirs become the ultimate lifeline for human cultivators to elevate their realms, becoming impossibly rare. Sure, the quality was just average, so Arthur buried his excitement, keeping his face totally blank. Stephen immediately flashed a placating smile. "I might be a fool, but I guarantee you these ancient items are absolutely not ordinary. Tell you what, I really want to make friends with you, brother. Arthur, let us say 5 million for each elixir. What do you think?" Arthur glanced over, screaming with joy on the inside, but he played it cool. "Fine, I suppose. Exactly how many does Chairman Stephen have? I will take them all." Ultimately, Arthur secured 100 pills, 5 million each. Stepping out of that Empire building, Arthur headed back at the estate. He keeps planning. 3 months before spiritual energy fully revives, strange phenomena are about to hit the globe, naturally catching the eyes of major factions, so he needs to finalize every single layout within these 3 months to seize the advantage. Next, using this bit of free time, he heads straight for Northshire, according to memories from his past life. Once the energy woke up, tons of ancient cultivation technique manuals spawned in Luca's village, an old Northshire town. The truly bizarre thing, no other place really had this happen. Years later, someone dug into it and found out about a crazy old man wandering around with wild, messy white hair. Now, long before the spiritual energy ever woke up, this guy traveled everywhere peddling martial arts manuals. Normal folks just thought he was a total scammer, so nobody bought a thing. But after the energy returned, those dusty old books turned out to be genuine cultivation techniques that actually worked. You and I know he needs to find this crazy old guy at all costs. So, on a random street corner in the old town, he just sits there eating noodles every single day, waiting patiently Finally, after 4 long days, the old man shows up, walking pretty unsteadily with a cane hauling a cloth sack on his back. He casually plops down right on the ground and opens it up. Dusty old books spill out. Then he starts yelling to the crowd, look here, divine martial arts manuals. Once in a lifetime chance, miss it and they are gone forever. How much for these books? Our guy asks. The old man looks up, spotting a young dude with this intense aura, and immediately grins. 50 per book. Buy in bulk and I will discount it. Wanna take a look? He just smiles, a little glancing at the messy pile on the dirt, casually flipping through a few pages, hand-drawn martial moves with detailed notes inside. Now he is absolutely certain these are the exact cultivation techniques everyone will be desperate for. Once the energy returns, pack them all up, he says, standing tall, pointing right at the pile of dusty books. The old scammer lights up with pure joy, scrambling to pack them up and handing them over, completely terrified he might back out. Total is 3,500. I will even throw in 10 extra books. Keep them safe. Simon, the assistant, immediately pulls out cash, handing it over. Manual secured. He heads right back to his estate and starts his next master plan. Over the next 6 days, Shirley's tomb raiding squad sends an update. They found real clues and will soon lock down the exact location of King Arthur's tomb. Meanwhile, the Great Northern Forest crew also has news. They found lightning wood trees, but the quality falls way short of the strict requirements. Still, they promise him that since they found basic lightning wood, finding the millennium-old stuff is basically a guaranteed sure thing. Hearing this, he is not rushed at all. He is waiting on another piece of seriously good news. Knock, knock. Simon pushes the office door open and walks in, holding up a tablet with a huge grin on his face. Mr. Leo took the bait. His eyes light up. Watch this. Over at the biggest nightclub in Trenton, we see a young blonde guy in a sharp dress shirt. He is standing right next to an insanely beautiful girl who is completely out cold. This. All right, you and I are looking at Leo, heir to the massive North Star Group. His dad, Leonard, since Leo was totally incompetent, he was completely excluded from any group business. To make things worse, his dad wanted to promote an illegitimate son named Luke to financial vice president, handing him total control over the corporate money. Leo absolutely could not stand this, so late at night he hit the club to blow off steam. Right then, his private room door got shoved open. In walks the club boss, Seth, a guy who was an old buddy of Leo. Seth walked up, stared at the sleeping girl, and suddenly yelled out, "Young Master Leo, I think something terrible has just happened." Leo frowned and stood right up. What do you mean? Seth looked dead serious, staring straight at Leo, dropping his voice. Young Master, do you know who this sleeping girl actually is? Leo scoffed. Isn't she just that music department beauty from Trenton University? What is the big deal? Seth just glared, speaking every single word carefully. That is Diana, the only daughter of Dennis, the director of Trenton's finance bureau. She is his absolute pride and joy, widely considered the pure white lily of local high society. Leo completely froze, then immediately swore at Seth. What are you saying? Are you trying to mess with me? Seth let out a sigh. Young Master, I didn't know her either. There was a missing person alert sent out last night. We checked the photos and finally realized. With that, he unlocked his phone, shoving the missing person alert right at Leo. Leo took one look, his blood running cold as pure panic gripped his chest. The finance bureau director's daughter. This was entirely serious. If her powerful family found out he was absolutely dead meat. Leo completely panicked, entirely losing all his composure. He would rather die than go crawling back for help from his family. What should I do, boss Seth? I am begging here. Please help me. His arrogant attitude did a full 180. Seth hit a quick mocking smirk, but instantly switched to looking serious. Young Master, our hands are totally tied. This mess definitely cannot be swept under the rug. She is the director's Daughter, then what do I do? Seriously, what do I do? Seth pretended to think. Before answering slowly, there is one way. Diana loves rare antiques, if you sell. Or gift her a few ancient treasures, maybe she will keep quiet. Leo was shocked, but then remembered he was a massive collector himself, parting with a few. Artifacts wouldn't be too hard, he frantically nodded. No problem, boss Seth, I am counting on you to arrange this. Seth nodded. For now, young master, you just play dumb, act perfectly normal and wait for my signal. Now watch this unfold. Few days later, a stunning girl in a flowing purple dress with long hair, who was actually Diana, the very daughter of the Trenton Finance Bureau boss, arrived. Right at Leo's mansion, he immediately started kissing up. I heard you love antiques. If you need anything, just say the word. If you are interested, we can check out my personal vault. Diana sat on his sofa, thought it over, and finally nodded. Leo led her straight out, navigating left and right down the huge hallways toward his vault. As those heavy doors opened, a massive space appeared. The vault was over 600 square meters, absolutely packed to the brim with ultra-rare ancient swords and calligraphy. Leo wore a proud smirk, eagerly introducing every single item, but right after Diana just stayed quiet. Look, Leo, these items are definitely nice, but they just aren't old enough, not Western Han era at all. Find something way more valuable. If you can't, you know exactly what happens next. Leo totally panicked. Wait, I have this treasure I bought from a Tibetan temple. Nobody knows where it actually came from. Give me just a second. I'll grab it right now. Sweating bullets, he practically sprinted to the room's corner, popped open his heavy safe, pulling out a box. Inside, a completely pitch-black bodhi. Seed about the size of a finger, looked pretty basic honestly. Leo held it like his life depended on it. Years ago, traveling through Tibet, I visited this temple. He explained, an old master told me this seed is incredibly rare. When the time is right, it will shine like crazy. Told me to guard it. Diana just glanced over, completely unimpressed. Looks like garbage. What's the big deal? Here, Leo instantly started backpedaling. Miss Diana, don't say that, even if it looks totally dead right now. I swear there is absolutely something magical inside. We just haven't figured out the trick to using it yet. Diana rolled her eyes. Fine, if that's your best item, sell me this seed, do that, and your little secret stays buried. Leo was totally caught off guard. Look, honestly, I paid an absolute fortune for this thing, he stammered. Plus, I feel a real connection to it. I really don't want to sell. Diana just hit him with a death glare. Leo instantly cracked. Okay, fine. As long as you promise to keep your mouth shut about last night, I'll sell it. Later that night, back at Arthur's estate, his assistant finally delivered the seed. Our MC smiled. Now, you and I might think it looks like basic trash, but once the world's spiritual energy awakens, it becomes a true God-tier item, essential for Arthur's cultivation level up. Sir, his assistant Simon reported, our intel says when Leo originally bought this little bodhi seed, a high monk warned him it would activate when the time was right. Arthur's eyes instantly lit up. 3 years ago, who exactly was that mysterious monk? Our MC knew he had to meet him, might score some more epic loot. Prep the jet. We are flying straight to Tibet tomorrow morning. Keep this completely off the radar. Following the intel, Arthur headed straight to the seed's origin point, Dragon Cliff Temple. Staring up at the worn sign above the ancient gates, his heart pounded. So this was the exact place in Arthur's past life memories. Dragon Cliff Temple was literally the very first spot overrun by monster hordes when the spiritual energy finally awakened. Humanity got absolutely crushed by the invasion, but somehow the monks here held the line, thanks to some ancient ruins and crazy spiritual energy plus a hidden barrier array. They actually held back the primordial beasts for 3 straight years. It wasn't until a terrifying king-level boss finally spawned that the temple got completely wiped out, pushing down those dark memories. Arthur straightened his jacket and walked right through the main Gates, a monk in deep red robes, stepped up. Is the benefactor here too? Pray or listen to the sacred teachings? Arthur just smiled smoothly. Respects to the great master. I came here today both to listen to the teachings and burn incense. Please lead the way, master. Let's watch this play out. Out of respect for the monks from his past life, Arthur acted incredibly humble. The young monk led him straight into the inner courtyard, heading for the main hall doors. Inside, a kind-looking old monk wrapped in a bright red cassock was deep into a lecture on Buddhist scriptures. Over 30 monks sat perfectly still on meditation cushions, listening closely. Arthur's arrival completely slipped under the radar, so he just sat down quietly and soaked in the teachings. 40 minutes later, right as the bell chimed, the lecture finally wrapped up. The monks filtered out one by one, leaving only Arthur and the head abbot in the hall. He spoke up directly. Greetings, great master. I came to Dragon Cliff Temple today simply because Arthur has something important to ask. I really hope the great master can enlighten me. The abbot just smiled and raised his hand. Please speak, benefactor. Do not hesitate. The Buddhist gate tells no lies. 3 years ago, the great master gifted a totally withered Bodhi seed to a young man. Today, fate brought it straight to me. I want to ask exactly where that Bodhi seed came from. Arthur cut right to the chase. The abbot pressed his palms together. It seems the benefactor has a deep affinity with it. That Bodhi seed was randomly picked up by this poor monk right on the mountain. That day, seeing that the young man had a special connection, this poor monk simply gifted it away. Unexpectedly, he absolutely insisted on paying, so this humble monk accepted it. As for the origin of the Bodhi seed, now that it has reached the benefactor's hands, it seems its true fate belongs to you. Hearing this, Arthur was definitely a little disappointed, so there were zero solid clues about this Bodhi seed. He just nodded. Thank you, great master. With that, Arthur stood right up, clasped his hands, and prepared to head out. Benefactor, please stay your steps. The old abbot suddenly stood up. The benefactor came to Dragon Cliff Temple today. Perhaps it is truly destiny, now that the Bodhi seed fully belongs to you. If this poor monk's guess is right, in the future, Dragon Cliff Temple might desperately need the benefactor's help. Arthur's heart jolted, his pupils shrinking. Did this abbot actually possess the real ability of real foresight? Could he seriously know about the spiritual energy revival and the impending great tribulation too? The benefactor need not be surprised. The abbot smiled gently. This poor monk is merely speculating, but since you are already here, this poor monk has a special item to gift the benefactor. Please follow this. Poor monk, stick with me here. Arthur followed the abbot halfway up the massive mountain behind the temple. The old man suddenly turned and asked, Benefactor, what do you make of the terrain of this mountain? Arthur stood halfway up the peak, just looking straight down. The wildly winding, interconnected mountain ranges looked exactly like a massive dragon coiling itself. The abbot just smiled without speaking, then pointed at the mountain peaks high above. Arthur looked up, squinting, and was totally startled. The surrounding peaks above his head looked exactly like a dragon soaring into the sky. Great master, may ask something? The abbot just waved his hand. This poor monk once accidentally picked up an item halfway up this mountain, but entirely unable to see through its profound mysteries. I kept it safely hidden. Saying that, he bent down, parted a patch of dry grass, and pulled out a pitch-black, dragon-shaped stone, handing it straight to Arthur. This item certainly has a deep affinity with the benefactor. Today, this poor monk gifts it to you. I truly hope that in the future, the benefactor can lend Dragon Cliff Temple a hand and not let this sacred place turn into dust. Arthur's heart grew even more astonished. This high the old monk had reached a profound realm, clearly knowing about this spiritual energy revival. Arthur nodded respectfully. Rest assured, great master, if disaster strikes, our guy will definitely help. The abbot nodded slowly. Arthur suddenly remembered something and spoke up. To be completely honest, coming here this time, I also want to take one more item. if it were any ordinary person out there, this action of mine might seem completely greedy and insatiable, but the old abbot of Dragoncliff Temple did not get angry at all. He didn't think the request was pushing it. He just smiled. What item? A rope completely immune to water and fire. Swords absolutely cannot cut it. Pure brute strength cannot break it. Plus, it has absurdly high durability. The cold mountain wind blew past them. The abbot suddenly dropped his smile. His face turned dead serious, acting like he was asking about something concerning the world's entire destiny. Benefactor, have you thought this through? Arthur looked right back at him, his eyes completely firm and respectful, nodding. The abbot fell into deep thought, staring out at those massive dragon-like mountains, then back at our main character. Finally, making his choice, he spoke slowly. Since that is the case, if the benefactor has made up his mind, this monk will say nothing more. This rope is incredibly special. Use it and you bear all the heavy karma attached. Later on, if you unlock its full power, never forget your original intentions. That would be best. Arthur nodded back. I will absolutely not disappoint your expectations. Based on his memories from his past life and careful deductions, Dragoncliff Temple had an insane origin story. It was said the place stood there for over 1,000 years, surviving countless intense battles, yet standing completely tall. After the spiritual energy finally returned, the mountain peak here transformed into a massive ancestral dragon, with its soul and giant bones stretching out endlessly. Down at the bottom, a wild tiger roar literally shook heaven and earth. Dragoncliff Temple, purely thanks to its ancient and powerful hidden relics, absorbed the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, easily resisting endless waves of attacks from monster beasts and the wild primordial tribe, protecting the grounds for years. Later that afternoon, right after finishing a simple meal and listening to some temple scriptures, Arthur quietly followed the old abbot straight into the meditation room. The monk grabbed a rope from the corner, roughly 2 meters long. Benefactor, this must be the exact rope you need. Arthur grabbed the rope, carefully feeling and checking it out. Besides its crazy elasticity, the item looked completely basic, but feeling the heavy aura radiating off it, our MC was absolutely certain this was the legendary precursor treasure for the coming spiritual energy revival. Thank you, great master, Arthur said smoothly. If one day Dragoncliff Temple ever falls into ruin, Arthur will step up and fight for you. The old monk just closed his eyes, sitting on his cushion without another word. Arthur slowly stood up, walked out of the room, and with his assistant, started on the long journey home. But little did he know, right after he left, another monk entered the meditation room and found the abbot completely lifeless. That very day, Elder Master Fabian of Dragoncliff Temple was dead. Temples across the entire country were absolutely shaken, and countless high monks silently prayed for him. Now, when Arthur got back to Trenton and heard the crazy news, his heart literally skipped a beat. He understood immediately. Elder Master Fabian had completely foreseen his own destiny, and with 0 attachments left, Arthur finally ascended. He fully entered the gate of pure emptiness. Time absolutely flew by, and before anyone knew it, a whole month passed. During this exact time frame, armed with memories from his past life, Arthur dropped tens of billions. He bought up countless ancient relics nationwide, stuffing an entire massive room full. Meanwhile, the wild news about him spending cash like water, blowing through over 100 billion, quickly spread all across Trenton. From the North Star Group's top young genius entrepreneur, he became a total prodigal son to everyone. In just 2 short months, his whole image completely tanked. Simon held a tablet, reading aloud the brutal online criticisms against him, facing this overwhelming tidal wave of pure public backlash and slander. Arthur knew exactly what was up. Leonard and those major corporations were clearly pulling strings behind the scenes, or greedy reporters and editors just wanted to grab some easy traffic. They used his downfall to send North Star's stock soaring. He just swirled his wine, completely unbothered. as calm as a still lake. As for Leonard's actual skills, Arthur knew them way too well. He lacked the guts to truly expand. He couldn't even defend a city, and his long-term strategic vision was honestly garbage. Those major corporate leaders only knew how to blindly speculate for quick profits, making short-term waves. With Leonard as chairman, the North Star Group was doomed to crash, but honestly, none of that even mattered anymore. In just 6 months, all wealth in megacorporations would be literal waste paper. Arthur turned his head, flashing Simon a mysterious smile. He ordered him to use all media resources, team up with social platforms, and drop heavy cash to push this hate wave even higher. Let the fire truly rage. Simon just looked at him, completely stunned and doubting everything, but he kept quiet and quickly left the room. You see, Arthur's master plan was actually brilliant. His crazy spending had attracted widespread attention, which was super dangerous for his real upcoming arrangements, especially critical matters involving the Millennium Old Lightning Wood or King Arthur's tomb. Instead of letting nosy people scrutinize him, he decided to push the storm higher himself, locking in that perfect image as a brainless prodigal son. When the real apocalypse hits, no matter what he does, nobody will pay any attention. They'll just completely forget about him. And sure enough, under Simon's execution, 10 major live stream platforms and 8 massive social networks simultaneously blasted news and videos about Arthur. Influencers began obsessively analyzing everything, entirely focused on the crazy story of Arthur selling off his shares, squandering his vast fortune, and spending recklessly. From the #1 business genius nationwide, he had instantly become a pathetic, regrettable prodigal son. Public opinion flooded with brutal mockery and curses. Honestly, some analyses even sounded very convincing. Sitting right at home, watching the overwhelming sarcasm roll in, he smiled faintly. Mission accomplished. Now get this, from today on, the name Arthur will forever be chained to the prodigal son title. Even if he did something totally weird, it wouldn't cause any major waves. The fake image was locked. Next, Arthur started thinking about survival for when the Great Tribulation finally hits. Standing quietly in the room, he tapped the wall's touchscreen. He ordered, "Little boy, pull up the files about the abandoned mine over in Winston City." Soon, Arthur and his assistant went straight to the mine, meeting the guy in charge inside a sketchy makeshift guardhouse. In the past, let's check out what used to be Winston City's biggest mine. The boss, known as Uncle Victor, was once an absolute legend, hauling in mountains of cash. He rubbed shoulders with city elites, but then disaster struck out of nowhere. The rare magical ores simply stopped dropping, just completely dried up. Since then, the whole operation collapsed. Zero income coming in, but those brutal annual land taxes still demanded full payment. Uncle Victor plummeted from a king down to absolute rock bottom overnight, losing everything. His luxury cars and mansion were seized. His wife walked out, and his fake friends vanished. Nobody wanted to touch this cursed, barren pit, so Uncle Victor had zero options left. He squatted here daily, desperately praying that somehow one day those precious stones would return. Now, inside this gloomy shack, Arthur directly watches the washed-up former millionaire. He politely reaches out his hand to offer a friendly greeting. Uncle Victor looks totally suspicious, quickly wiping his grime-covered hand on his stained shirt before shaking it. "Hello, young man, have a seat. This place is a mess, hope you don't mind." Victor flashes a broken smile, then shouts out, "Hey Dave, brew us some tea." A bored teenager rolls out of bed, tossing his phone to start boiling water. Arthur takes one look at him, his eyes suddenly light up. He recognizes this kid. Dave is practically a mutant born with godly strength, holding limitless potential. When the spiritual energy awakening hits, he's going to use that raw physical power to defend Winston City against the terrifying, ferocious beasts. My nephew hates studying, so his folks dumped him here too. Learn the hard way. Victor chuckles, handing Arthur a terribly cheap double Happiness brand cigarette. He sparks one for himself, blowing thick gray smoke. You give off major boss energy, kid. Coming to a dump like this just. Spill whatever deal you're pitching. Now watch this. Arthur calmly lights the cheap. Smoke blowing perfectly round rings like an absolute pro. Listen up, Victor, formerly the undisputed king of Winston City's mining scene, the absolute top dog in the game, but thanks to that freak anomaly, your rocks vanished and this place died. Refusing to let your life's greatest achievement go, clinging to that tiny shred of hope, you burned through your net worth keeping this dead pit for 10 years now. Hitting rock bottom, Victor immediately scowls, his expression turning freezing cold. Staring daggers at him, if you came to laugh, get out, I've survived enough of that trash for 10 years. Arthur replies seriously, Mr. Victor, you totally misunderstand. I deeply respect your stubbornness. I am buying this mine for $10 billion, but you keep full management rights, literally all. The daily operations stay with you, plus I am tossing in an extra 20 billion in pure cash for operating costs. Victor is completely shell-shocked, his face shows massive disbelief mixed with heavy suspicion. Why on earth should I trust a kid like you? To Victor, anyone dropping a casual 30 billion in cash sounded completely insane. I am Arthur, he smirks. Victor jolts hard. You are Arthur, the country's biggest spoiled rich kid. Arthur simply ignores it, pushing forward. My terms are easy. 10 billion to buy this massive mine while you pocket 10% of all shares. The other 20 billion, you burn through it however you need for 5 months. Build me a revitalized mine. After 5 months, I take full control, but you keep collecting those sweet profits forever. Also, Dave stays on payroll for 100,000 a month. Victor's jaw literally dropped, mouth wide open in absolute shock. Finally, he sighed. It looked like the newspapers were telling the truth. Our guy stayed quiet, but inside, absolute pure hype. Once the world's magical energy wakes up, this dead mine will pump out spirit stones nonstop, turning into an absolute goldmine for magical resources, with the Grand Valley secret realm secured as his main base, plus all this raw energy and crazy artifacts. He knew for sure he would eclipse his past life. After sealing the deal, he spent 3 whole days hyping up Victor, a broken man. Completely crushed by his past failures, slowly he started fixing the mine. Victor was totally confused, asking, if all the ore is gone, how do we actually make money? Our MC kept it a total secret, just ordering him to round up loyal workers, throw up massive walls, clear out the junk, and pave a solid road straight to the city. That is your only mission for the next 5 months. After that, I handle everything else. Stop stressing about the details. Even though Victor clearly had questions, he kept his mouth shut. Over those next few days, he spent time talking to Dave, realizing this insanely strong powerhouse was actually super innocent. Just a huge softie. Getting him as a loyal right-hand man down the line would be an absolute jackpot. Back home, updates from King Arthur's tomb finally arrived. They actually found the ruins, but it was a total death trap, and Shirley's raiding squad took some really heavy casualties. She stormed into his office, aggressively demanding a massive payout bump. He agreed instantly, casually dropping an extra $5 million. With just one strict condition. In 3 months, those 3 legendary swords better be sitting right on his desk. Meanwhile, that completely unhinged old guy over in Northshire had also reached out, claiming he dug up some bizarre, overpowered cultivation manual, but insisted on a face-to-face meeting. But before leaving, our guy had one annoying problem left. Over the last 2 weeks, 9 massive corporations had spammed him with endless dinner invites, desperately wanting his attention. Later that night, inside the lavish living room of Leonard's villa, over 20 elite corporate bosses had gathered together. Why were they obsessing over him? Because he perfectly played the clueless, rich playboy role. Leonard totally planned to drain his bank accounts, making absolutely sure he could never bounce back from ruin, so he teamed up with these greedy bosses, hoarding a ton of fake relics and garbage, targeting his known antique obsession. They were basically setting up A total ambush disguised as dinner. Mr. Arthur has arrived, the butler led him. Inside, every single person faked a massive smile, turning toward the doors in. Perfect unison, he casually scanned the room full of snakes, speaking calmly, "Sorry to keep you." Waiting, Arthur is officially late. Leonard flashed a big smile, faking the deep concern of a loving uncle. "Arthur, listen to me honestly, I fought right alongside your old man in the brutal business world. I really hate seeing you continuously waste your fortune like this." Leonard crushed his cigarette, speaking in a super depressed, dramatic tone. "Just the other night, I dreamt of your father. He completely blamed me for failing to protect the North Star Company. I felt so awful I woke up crying. As for your company shares, if you need the cash, I can buy them back instantly." Right after saying that, this guy literally squeezed out fake tears, pulling a cloth from his pocket to wipe his ugly face. Our MC just watched this performance. If he didn't know Leonard's true colors, he would totally fall for the trap. "Uncle Leonard, save your breath. Those shares are already sold. I am definitely not buying them back. Plus, I actually think our MC's life is going perfectly. Let's watch him skip the boring stuff entirely." He acts totally arrogant, does not even bother looking anyone in the eyes. He plays the classic rich young master role flawlessly for them. Leonard steps up, noting how our hero loves collecting rare antiques. He offers up items from the uncles, telling him not to sweat the price. They claim they will sell everything at cost. What a generous offer, right? But this batch of artifacts, along with some prime land, adds up fast. Leonard plays the worried card, his tone dripping with totally fake caution. Our guy keeps up the act. He demands to see the goods first. He tells them to stop wasting time. The old chairman looked completely furious. If they did not want his cash so badly, they would have snapped immediately. Following Leonard's lead, the greedy men reveal their prized collections. Looking at the massive spread, our hero hides his intense inner excitement. A Tang-style jade, a snow pearl, a glowing gem, and dried elixirs. Plus multiple land deeds hiding literal secret realms. He is absolutely thrilled inside. Outside, he looks bored, harshly judging every single item on display. While he complains, the old men sweat, terrified he might just walk away. 2 full hours later, he finishes looking over the entire stash of items. He leans back lazily, mocking them for bringing such incredibly average stuff today. He asks for the final number. Leonard can barely hide his greedy smile. Leonard names a ridiculous fixed price of $200 billion right there. They all stare at him. "You and I know the real value though. Not even 50 billion. They fully expect our guy to fight the price." The room goes completely silent, but surprisingly, our hero just smirks. He tells them to pack it up and prepare contracts within 7 days. Then he simply stands up and leaves. Minutes later, the men realize everything. They burst into crazy, mocking laughter, back at his massive estate. He checks his insane haul and orders his assistant to handle the paperwork. Over the next few days, he plans a major trip straight back to Northshire. He needs to see the mysterious cultivation manual that old man promised. Meeting up with him again, our main character is totally caught off guard. The old man has styled hair, an expensive designer suit, and polished shoes. He is rocking a $1 million watch, flanked by 5 huge, muscular bodyguards. The tall muscle follows closely behind as he warmly welcomes Mr. Arthur inside. The previously crazy elder is super polite now, offering a huge, welcoming smile. He went from a crazy street beggar to a totally loaded golden bachelor. Living in a Lucas Village villa and driving a flashy supercar, absolute upgrade. He leads our hero inside, dismisses the guards, and grabs a premium bottle. Pouring some fancy brandy from the rack, he offers a glass to Arthur. Taking the drink, Arthur states his business. He wants to see the heavenly text. The ancient text mentioned over the phone. The old man nods and walks over. He heads to a corner safe and pulls out a heavily yellowed, ancient book. Handing over the fragile pages, our MC takes it and reads the faded cover. Classic Heavenly Book, Volume 1. Looking at it triggers his past life memories. He is certain this is the exact legendary treasure once held by a master. Cultivator, watch closely. Back then, that guy was sitting at the absolute peak of the divine treasury realm, but thanks to these 2 volumes of the Heavenly Book, he was able to fight evenly against monstrous beasts bordering the true king realm. This was exactly what Arthur needed. He said, "Same as last time, I'll pay 50 million." He packed the book away. The old merchant had actually priced it for someone else. Dropping 50 million cash on some dusty old book seemed like absolute madness. But once the spiritual energy fully revives, this heavenly book becomes a priceless treasure. A whole mountain of spirit stones wouldn't even buy it. Deal, the old merchant replied. Mr. Arthur, take it with you, transferring the funds later is perfectly fine. Right before leaving, Arthur asked one question. Where did you find this book? Old man Young just grinned from ear to ear. South Sun Mountain, right behind Lucas Village in Northshire, but this requires some serious destiny. I just got lucky. Mr. Arthur, if you are interested, go take a look. Arthur nodded, walked right out of the villa and followed Young's directions straight toward South Sun Mountain. This massive peak is situated north of Lucas Village, a wild branch of the famous Himalayas, over 900 meters high and totally untouched. The rocky path is brutally hard to climb, finally reaching the peak. Arthur sat on a massive rock, scanning the area. Let's look closely. Nothing special. The whole mountain was dead quiet with 0 people around, just basic plants and random wildlife. Nothing stood out at all. After half an hour of resting, he was getting ready to leave, but then a figure climbing the mountain. Arthur's pupils shrank in shock. The guy had white hair, a black Taoist robe, held a whisk, carried an ancient sword on his back, and wore blue lotus Taoist hat. On that jagged mountain path, he moved as fast as flying, stepping as lightly as if it were flat ground. The Taoist saw Arthur and froze completely. He clearly did not expect anyone else up on South Sun Mountain. He didn't know Arthur, but you and I would recognize him instantly. Master Henderson of the White Cloud Temple, an absolute legend of the Taoist sect. 10 years after the great spiritual energy revival, he showed up and one-shotted a true king from the primordial tribe. Just one sword strike, shaking the whole nation. Greetings, Taoist Master Henderson. Arthur clasped his hands with deep respect. The master was slightly startled, returning the formal greeting with a very surprised look. This humble Taoist usually lives in the eastern extreme sea and rarely sets foot inland. How does the benefactor know me? Arthur just blinked and smiled playfully. Maybe it's just destiny. Henderson laughed loudly. Well said, destiny indeed. It seems meeting up here today is also fate, if this old Taoist is guessing correctly. The classic Heavenly Book has fallen into your hands. Am I right? Arthur's heart hammered. Wait, could it be that even right now Henderson had already seen through the celestial secrets, knowing about the 2 heavenly books and even the future spiritual energy revival, but knowing the master's noble character perfectly? Arthur hid nothing and nodded. The heavenly book is in my hands. Does the Taoist master wish to take it back? Henderson just shook his head and smiled. No, the classic heavenly book inherently has incredibly mysterious origins. Only those tied to destiny can hold it. Since the benefactor has obtained it, why would this humble Taoist ask for it back? Keep it safe. Who knows, maybe someday it might be needed. Just hope he doesn't forget his original heart and mission. Arthur was amazed inwardly. Clearly, Henderson knew something. Hesitating for a second, our main character asked, Please enlighten me, Taoist Master, what makes this South Sun Mountain so special? Henderson's eyes flashed. He waved his whisk. Celestial secrets cannot be revealed, little friend. You and I meeting here today is pure destiny. If there is a chance later, perhaps we will cross paths again. Finishing his sentence, his figure flashed rapidly descending the mountain. Arthur quickly looked down, but in the blink of an eye, the old master was completely gone. Time flew by. A whole month passed since That South Sun Mountain trip, now you and I know his projects progressed. Smoothly, right on cue, epic news arrived from the great northern forest. They finally found it, the millennium-old lightning wood. Hearing this, our guy immediately boarded the helicopter piloted by Hugh, arriving at the great northern forest at absolute top speed. Down at an abandoned workshop near the foot of the mountain, Arthur spotted the millennium-old lightning wood. The trunk stood roughly 3 meters tall, measuring about 40 centimeters across. Its outer bark was pitch black, completely scorched by lightning, yet radiating a faint gray aura. He was hyped, remembering his past life where this exact wood was snatched by a massive national family and forged into an immortal spear. Every single swing unleashed divine flashing light, and booming thunder shook the heavens. He reached out, feeling the rough texture of the lightning wood, glancing at the manager standing nearby with a massive welcoming smile. Arthur pulled out a black card, handing it right over. 5 million, the transfer will be done tonight so your crew can withdraw it immediately. Here is an extra million as a bonus, but I have one demand. Keep everything strictly secret for at least 3 months. Can you handle that? The manager was absolutely ecstatic, hurriedly nodding. Rest assured, boss. My guys are all mountain locals who really rarely interact with the outside world, completely trustworthy. After handling this crucial lightning wood deal, our hero stayed up north for a few extra days, tracking down more essential gear before bringing his whole haul back to Trenton. Just as Arthur stepped off the chopper, his assistant hurriedly reported some massive news. Sir, we have an update from Empire Group. They finally secured 10,000 withered elixirs. Arthur's eyes lit up, completely energized. These elixirs were going to be crucial treasures. Trust me, even without cultivation, just swallowing one single pill could launch a literal pig to the peak of the divine treasury realm. Let us go check it immediately. That same afternoon, he arrived at the Empire building, but unlike his previous visit, Chairman Stephen's face was showing serious signs of panic. Mr. Arthur, I have been hearing wild rumors lately. The future situation, I fear, is far from optimistic. Stephen stared at Arthur, both doubting and probing, his voice heavy with worry. Arthur didn't answer directly, instead calmly asking, "What exactly did the chairman hear?" Stephen stood up, slumped back onto his sofa, and shook his head. Nothing super specific, just friends warning me that a huge event might happen soon, something affecting the entire globe. Plus, recently, while antique shopping out in Riverdale, I actually noticed a few ancient families showing up. They are aggressively collecting antiques too. Normally, these elite families absolutely ignore the antique trade, so Arthur figured a massive event was about to happen, forcing them to act. At the exact same time, on the outside, stone cold, inside, his mind raced. In his past life, hidden factions began buying antiques and territories, holding secret realms, but that wasn't until 7 or 8 months later. Now, with only 4 months until spiritual energy returns, these ancient families had already moved way earlier than he predicted. Don't worry, Chairman, Arthur told him. When the enemy soldiers attack, the general stops them. When the massive flood hits, the Earth will block it. Wanting to drop the subject, our guy just moved on. Chairman, about this huge batch of withered elixirs, I will still buy them. All at the exact same price as before. Stephen gave a nod, signaling his assistant to bring those heavy wooden boxes inside. And yeah, they held dozens of dead elixirs. This time over 10,000 pills total, still the exact same price, 5 billion. Stephen tried to play it cool as a merchant. This single deal brought him a clean profit of 4 billion, more than enough cash to ignore his lingering doubts about these ancient families. Arthur just smiled, gave a nod, and prepared to leave. Before walking out, Stephen suddenly asked, "Mr. Arthur, the huge moves you are making lately cost tens of billions. Look, everyone knows I really should not say too much, but I have to tell you this. Those ancient families, they are not like the 9 major corporate groups. If you ever clash with them down the line, Please just try to endure it. Stephen was clearly treating Arthur like a real friend. From business partner to someone he actually trusted, besides the insane profits Arthur brought in. Stephen had this gut feeling that Arthur would become a major player during the upcoming chaos. It was a weird feeling to explain, but he fully believed it. No matter what, the Empire Group would always stand with brother Arthur. He nodded, looking back with genuine gratitude. See, you and I know from his past life, the Empire Group eventually joined the nation's official forces. They actually helped out, fighting off monster hordes, holding back local gangs, and keeping order. Definitely worthy of total respect. Having their heavy support down the line would be a massive tactical advantage. Meanwhile, inside a hidden pavilion over in Riverdale, a secretive group was holding a meeting. Sitting dead center, a white-haired man in his 60s leaned back. An antique chair, eyes half closed. He gave off this heavy, boss-level aura without even trying to look angry. This was the big guy himself, head of the Morgan family. The absolute strongest ancient family in Riverdale, father to Matthew Morgan. Sitting below him were the core members of their entire clan. The Morgan family had planted deep roots in Riverdale for literal centuries, building up a massive corporate empire and insane amounts of wealth. They were even once strong enough to challenge the Riverdale Financial Alliance. Over half of the corporate chairmen of major companies right here belonged to the Morgan family. After a solid month of hard work, we have secured over 100 ancient relics and paintings, along with 3 entire mines. Matthew Morgan sat quietly below, looking up respectfully at his father, his eyes shining with anticipation. Old Morgan slowly opened his eyes, glanced at his son, and asked coldly, "What are you rushing for?" After a brief pause, he continued, "According to the ancient prophecy, we still have at least 3 months left. If our Morgan family knows this secret, other great families definitely know it too. Lots of players have started moving lately, but if we rush things now, we will easily alert the snake. The other great families haven't moved yet, aren't they? Also waiting for the final moment." Hearing this, the Morgan family members finally understood. 3 months gave them plenty of time to fully prepare. Meanwhile, over in Hanjong, the head of the Lewis family scowled as he listened to his subordinates' reports, clearly annoyed. "Hey, don't be so anxious. We still have 3 months. Old Morgan hasn't made a move yet. Don't act rashly and alert the snake." His managers down below hastily agreed, but the panic was real. After all, only 3 months remained. At that exact same moment, all 10 great families nationwide were holding highly classified meetings to discuss this massive upcoming event. 3 months later, a shady faction called Oracle quietly infiltrated these elite families, pushing them into starting their grand master plans. But here's the thing, as a reincarnator, our guy already knew they'd act in his past life manipulated by that mysterious faction. They made the first move, securing a massive head start. They hoarded tons of ancient artifacts in secret realms, completely monopolizing all resources. Once the spiritual energy fully revived, that shady faction was actually a group of primordial tribe lackeys secretly planted inside humanity, guiding those great families step by step straight down the path of ultimate destruction. Luckily, the national government finally realized the massive problem and stepped in to stop the disaster from spreading too far. But in this timeline, he is 5 months ahead, possessing 6 mines, a triple S-tier secret realm, 6 of King Arthur's swords capable of slaughtering true kings, plus 2 volumes of the classic Heavenly Book and countless other treasures. Our MC is absolutely confident that when this massive apocalypse hits, he will charge straight out like a dark horse, absolutely dominating everyone. Now, with just over 2 months left until the spiritual energy fully awakens, some fantastic news arrived from King Arthur's tomb. Master Oakley and Master Easton had returned and immediately arranged a private meeting with him. That evening, thus, 2 absolute legends of the tomb raiding world arrived at his massive estate. Master Oakley wore a bluish-gray Taoist robe, carried a long sword, packed 2 pistols, tucked right into his waistband, and a pure heroic aura radiated from him. Master. Easton rocked a leather jacket, sporting a bushy beard and a totally relaxed gaze, looking entirely casual and totally unbothered by his looks. Both were native. Northerners, our MC set up a roaring lamb hot pot right in the living room. Mr. Arthur, we won't hide anything from you, Master Oakley said over the boiling hot pot. We just got back from America and witnessed some seriously strange stuff over there. People are desperately hoarding food, daily necessities, basically everything usable. Meanwhile, merchants are aggressively hunting down antiquities everywhere, but America only has a few hundred years of history, so genuine antiquities are pretty rare. Mr. Arthur, is it possible that something massive is about to go down, facing Master Oakley's direct question? Our guy simply nodded. I heard some major event might happen, but what exactly it is, I honestly don't know. When the time is right, everyone will know. He then followed up. I know King Arthur's tomb was robbed during the Three Kingdoms era, and 3 of those 6 legendary bronze swords were taken away. The guy who stole them worked right under Cao Cao of Wei, a literal gold-touching captain. Master Oakley calmly recounted these bizarre tales, then suddenly asked, Mr. Arthur, what exactly do you need all 6 of King Arthur's swords for? Master Easton suddenly stopped his. Master Easton drops his chopsticks, staring right at our main character. He just smiles faintly. I just naturally love collecting antiques. The older, the better. I actually once read a book about the 6 swords of King Arthur. That really sparked my interest. That is exactly why this transaction happened. Master Easton lowered his eyes, looking totally lost in thought. Back in my youth, I saw an ancient formation inside a Taoist temple. It was made of 6 bronze swords. It looked very similar to those 6 King Arthur swords. Mr. Arthur, could it be that you are interested in this specific sword formation? Our guy just laughed. A sword formation is pretty unlikely to exist in the real world. Master Easton nodded in total agreement. That is true. What happens on September 17th is really hard to explain, but formations are mostly myths, rarely real in this world. After that little chat, the 3 of them kept talking about the exact location of King Arthur's tomb and their future plans perfectly. But right before they left, our guy called Master Easton back and asked, so where exactly is that Taoist temple you just mentioned located? Master Easton shot him a look, thought for a second, and slowly answered, near the White Cloud Temple out in the eastern extreme sea. Brother Arthur, if you are interested, you can go check it out, but take my advice on this. That formation is for looking only. Do not take it as reality. With that warning, the 2 men said goodbye and headed straight for King Arthur's tomb. He actually had 0 doubts about their abilities. Getting those last 3 bronze swords back would absolutely not be a problem for them. But what really grabbed his interest was near that White Cloud Temple. You see, back in his past life, he was actually dragged right into an ancient Taoist tomb, right? He saw that heavenly sword formation himself. It matched Master Easton's description perfectly, but back then, time was super tight, so he never got the chance to map out the exact location. Looking back, when he recently met Taoist Master Henderson over at South Sun Mountain, that old guy definitely knew some secrets. He just found it too risky to spill them just yet. Realizing this, our hero decided to personally visit the White Cloud Temple to test his luck, because a fully complete heavenly sword formation. It held absolute god-level power. Suddenly, a bunch of phone calls broke his train of thought, but the second he heard the news, he was totally thrilled. The massive construction in the Grand Valley was basically finished up. Victor's Winston City mine was done too, complete with a paved road running straight to the main national highway. The whole site was cleared out. According to Victor's calculations, that mine could start shipping out heavy ores by next month. And the other mines he sniped from the 9 big corporations, they were almost completely done. With repairs too, by October they would be running at full capacity. Now, using his remaining Tens of billions in cash, our guy did not hesitate. He instantly called up Uncle Gideon. He hired 500 hardcore veterans, locking down every single key transport route for all 5 mines. No one was touching his ore shipments, with everything perfectly set up. He crashed on the sofa, feeling this completely unreal and overwhelming sense of peace. But you and I know those 10 great families could not just sit around anymore. They sent out their absolute best elites to start hunting their biggest targets right now, those 6 ancient bronze swords, the abandoned mines, and that mythical Bodhi seed, with everyone getting involved. Listen up, the big families and powerful elites started hoarding too. Antiques, the whole country went completely insane over trading them. Prices spiked 10 times, even 100 times higher. Absolute market chaos. Inside the luxurious top-floor office of the Empire Building, Stephen just rubbed his forehead. He stared at his team's reports with a bitter smile. Whispering, "Brother Arthur, you are always one step ahead of us." He instantly ordered his people to use every connection to buy antiques. The older the better, paying absolutely any price to keep them away from those greedy noble families. Meanwhile, out on the remote eastern extreme island, at White Cloud Temple, Arthur sat drinking tea with Master Henderson and his 2 disciples. 10 long days of grinding, plus piecing together fragmented past life memories. He had finally tracked down the exact hidden location of White Cloud Temple. Honestly, the eastern extreme sea is a massive maze of randomly scattered islands like stars. Without serious preparation, you and I would never find the temple. For this trip, our guy Arthur packed plenty of supplies, bringing food and solid gifts. Master Henderson lived a super strict lifestyle, but still accepted the offerings, brewing up some top-tier tea to host him. "Mr. Arthur, finding us proves you have a real connection," Henderson said. The old master had pure white hair but somehow looked younger than their South Sun Mountain meeting, literally like an immortal youth. Arthur could only wonder, was the global spiritual energy revival actually reversing aging for high masters like him? In Arthur's past life, he never really talked to him, barely knowing the man, but in this new life, meeting just once, Henderson felt completely unfathomable and insanely profound. After thinking, Arthur decided to speak straight. He admitted he only came this time because of an ancient Taoist tomb ruin nearby. Inside that tomb sits a mysterious formation of 6 bronze swords holding absolutely unmatched power. According to his intel, the ruin was right near White Cloud Temple, so he wanted to ask the Taoist master for help. Henderson's face instantly shifted, and that calm smile vanished. He stared right through Arthur. After a tense silence, he said, "The Great Tribulation is approaching fast. It seems you are fully prepared. I will break my rules just this once. That ancient tomb is exactly 30 miles north of this temple. I will sketch a specific map for you." Absolutely thrilled, Arthur clasped his hands. "Thank you, Master." At White Cloud Temple, Henderson mapped out the ruin on paper, folded it up neatly, and handed it to him with a cryptic warning. "You have found the formation. Now you must carry this heavy destiny. No matter what, do not forget your true purpose." Hearing those exact words, Arthur jolted, remembering the exact same warning from Master Fabian at Dragon Cliff Temple. "I will completely honor your words," Arthur replied. Grabbing the map, he quickly left. To save precious time, he called Hugh, ordering him and his most trusted men to track down the ancient tomb ruin using the map. Since Hugh's elite crew were all hardcore veterans with serious survival skills, they easily found the ruin's entrance. Stepping into the dark tomb, Arthur relied purely on past life memories to hunt down that formation wall. "Stick with me, it gets wild here. You and I are witnessing history." Arthur found his prize, ordering his crew to snap photos from every angle. They had to save these formation diagrams straight to their phones. Before he exhaled a massive breath of relief, walking away, securing this complete heavenly sword array. When those true kings descend, our MC will be absolutely invincible. Meanwhile, Simon's crew was making moves. Experts like Master Oakley and Master Easton finally located those remaining 3 bronze swords. They were heading to Trenton tomorrow to hand them straight to him, Arthur's spirit sword, and he immediately boarded a chopper back to Trenton, with just 20 days left until the world's spiritual energy awakened. He had finally hoarded all those priceless treasures from his past life memories, shipping them straight to his future stronghold, the Grand Valley. Staring out over the Grand Valley, fully renovated after 6 long months, Arthur still felt uneasy. In his previous life, he had personally witnessed the sheer madness of the great elite families. They would do literally anything for power, endlessly fighting to the bitter death, so our MC hired an extra 800 elite soldiers, deploying them to lock down key Grand Valley checkpoints. He even mortgaged his own villa to construct temporary barracks right inside the valley, ensuring everything remained perfectly under his control. Simon reported that 360 alarm systems were installed across the Grand Valley, 500 hardened mercenaries, holding power-matching elite armed police forces were ready, plus local city security could mobilize 1,000 men for backup, arriving in under 10 minutes flat. Simon stood aside, finishing his security report. Arthur frowned, immediately ordering, "These defenses aren't enough. Call Uncle Gideon right now. We need to pull those highway guards and transfer every single one of them to the Grand Valley to back up our mercenaries." He knew this was the ultimate turning point. If he could just survive until the spiritual energy erupted, neither those greedy great families nor those primordial monster beasts would be a threat anymore. In this second life, Arthur poured his soul into this preparation, leaving 0 blind spots. Based on those specific artifact classifications, he planned 10 steps ahead. Those 6 bronze swords were planted across 6 exact valley locations to form that devastating heavenly sword array from the ancient ruins, perfectly mapping the 5 elements, the mystical Bodhi seed stayed safely in his pocket. That millennium-old lightning wood and elder master Fabian's legendary dragon stone were grouped together. He could toss them into the secret realm's furnace to forge absolute divine weapons. The fallen meteorite, the ancient Bronze Age jade, pendants, over 10,000 withered elixirs, and those priceless antiques from the 9 mega corporations crammed the entire valley, leaving absolutely 0 breathing room. Plus, he dug out a massive cellar halfway up the mountain, capping it with a heavy titanium roof and blast doors, the perfect vault for storing future spirit stones. The stage was finally set. Arthur moved directly into the Grand Valley. Adapting his body to the harsh climate, time flashed forward. Today marked the country's National Day. The entire population was on vacation, and tourist hotspots were completely swarming with massive crowds. Up north at a packed zoo, a guide was showing off Siberian tigers to curious onlookers. These beasts are currently the absolute largest felines, purely meat eaters, and trust me, they get incredibly aggressive. Kids take a few steps back, but suddenly a little girl pointed straight at a giant Siberian tiger and screamed, "Look, how is that tiger standing straight up? Ready for the apocalypse? This kid is pretty funny." The guide smiles, watching the young girl with a warm look. "Miss, I'm serious." But then the whole crowd goes absolutely crazy. The guide turns totally pale and looks back. Yep, the Siberian tiger she knows so well suddenly bulges with muscle, throws its head back, and roars. Standing right up on 2 legs, in 60 seconds, it bends the heavy iron cage, and right then, pure terrifying screams start echoing across the entire zoo. Meanwhile, out in the southwest, the sky is perfectly clear. A second later, thunder booms and massive ice blocks just drop straight from the sky. At an amusement park in Riverdale, pitch black clouds gather, and an absolutely massive tornado drops down, wiping everything out in 1 instant. From the 9 provinces to the 4 oceans, disasters hit hard. A total global catastrophe crashes down. Humanity faces pure nightmares, but they really do not know this is just the start. Over in Riverdale, Morgan stands by the window. Watching the frantic rescue teams down below, he looks at the totally weak and helpless crowd, a cold smile creeping onto his face. These disasters are the perfect filter for elites. The weak just hide in the cracks until they finally get wiped out. The strong prepare early, grab the main chance to really step up and hoard resources. Our Morgan family will rule the absolute peak. Over all the great families, showing everyone the power of the oldest family around. Behind him, the entire Morgan family bloodline is kissing his boots. Total unison. Even being old, Morgan absolutely eats up this flattery. Our men are back, even without knowing the final details. Morgan is super confident his family's shady plans went off without a hitch. But right when his guys in black suits rush in, dropping to their knees. Now watch this. That smug smile on Morgan's face completely freezes. Pure dread just drops heavy. In his chest, he scowls hard and barks. What went wrong? A huge guy panics and stammers, "Boss, we hired the best grave robbers in the world to track down King Arthur's actual tomb. We went deep inside, but we found out those legendary bronze swords were already gone. Someone else completely beat us." To the punch, Morgan's face turns ugly, exploding in sheer rage. "What? Gone? How is that possible? I plotted for 10 years, spent tens of millions just to quietly grab those bronze swords when the apocalypse hit. Now you tell me they just vanished." Furious roars shake the entire room. Morgan looks practically demonic. Everyone in that room shakes with fear, bowing down, not even breathing. They are absolutely terrified. "You useless idiots, all of you are trash," Morgan screams out. "Investigate this right now. Find who took them. Use every resource to get them back. I want that thief dead without a burial site." The guy on the floor frantically answers, "Boss, looking through multiple underground sources, we actually locked right onto the main suspect. Arthur, that former chairman of the North Star Group." Morgan scowls hard. "Arthur, the guy who went totally crazy buying old relics, called the #1 rich loser in the nation by the media." Then it clicks. Very well, so he totally played us. The news blasted his name everywhere, building up this fake spoiled kid image. Turns out it was massive camouflage for his early apocalypse prep. "You've got to respect the hustle," Morgan roars. "Send your men right now. Use any means necessary. You have to bring those bronze swords back." But suddenly another subordinate chimed in. "Patriarch, those two abandoned mines we were eyeing. Arthur just bought them both. The jade pendants and withered elixirs. He snatched them straight from the Empire Group. Even the body seed has fallen right into Arthur's hands." Hearing this disastrous report, Morgan's face turned completely green. Barely able to contain his boiling rage, he took a deep breath. "You absolute idiots. Trash. Getting played like a fiddle by some kid running around in circles. What now?" A middle-aged man bowed his head low and explained the reality. "Patriarch, according to our inside spies, Arthur just hired thousands of veteran mercenaries. Plus, he has stockpiled a massive amount of heavy weaponry. If we strike blindly, we probably will not gain any advantage here." Morgan just paced back and forth, frantically weighing his options. Everyone else in the room held their breath. Let's see what happens next. 5 minutes later, Morgan finally swept his dark gaze over the room. "Get in touch with the other 9 great families immediately. Tell them everything we wanted has been stolen by Arthur. Our Morgan family is taking action. We are taking back what belongs to us. As for those other families, they know exactly what they have to do. At the exact same time, the other 9 great families nationwide received the exact same disastrous reports as the Morgan family. Every single plan they built for years, totally hijacked by Arthur." After one tense meeting, the 10 families reached a consensus. Now pay attention here. Join forces to hunt down Arthur, demand the treasures back, and claim the mines. They even divided the future spoils based on family status. And so, representatives from the 10 great families sent a direct threat to Arthur, demanding he return absolutely everything. Otherwise, they would unleash military force upon the Grand Valley. Meanwhile, inside the Grand Valley, Arthur finished reading the arrogant letter from the 10 great families, ripped it to shreds and immediately took action. Notify every single unit. Enter Stage 1. Combat readiness, Arthur coldly ordered. If they dare to come, wipe them out. I will bear the consequences. His assistant relayed the order, eyes flashing with absolute fanatical zeal. The grand chaos was finally arriving. Arthur had absolutely zero fear. He knew deep down if those great families dared to show up, he would show absolutely no mercy. Until the spiritual energy revived, they were absolutely nothing to worry about. His assistant rushed out to transmit Arthur's orders everywhere. When the enemies learned Arthur had torn up their letter, the 10 great families immediately decided to use total military force. They needed to quickly capture the Grand Valley, violently take back everything they lost, gather it together, and then divide the remaining 5 mines. They sent their troops to seize it all, planning to use overwhelming power to force Arthur to obediently hand everything over. Morgan, acting as their leader, proposed, "The official military does not have the time to bother with us right now. This is a once-in-a-lifetime golden opportunity. If we miss this, we fall into an abyss of eternal damnation." The other families totally agreed to act. All 10 great families gathered their absolute massive forces, marching straight toward the Grand Valley. When thousands of armed men swarmed the city near the valley, Arthur received the news immediately. He gathered all his fully prearranged forces, heavily concentrating them at the Grand Valley, over 1,000 men loaded with serious heavy weapons, completely ready for battle. Standing tall atop the Grand Valley, Arthur looked down through his binoculars, seeing the 10 great families are charging aggressively right down the main highway. Engines roar like crazy. Their massive convoy finally halts right below the mountain. Thousands of armed fighters jump out. They lock and load, getting ready to strike. Up above, Arthur raises his hand. The mountain defenders rack their guns, aiming every single barrel straight down at the invading army below them. One word from him, and we will watch millions of bullets rain. With the high ground on his side, Arthur holds absolute dominance here. Getting into formation, Morgan steps forward. Guarded by heavily armed bodyguards, he walks to the foot of the mountain. Grabbing a megaphone, the old man shouts up at him, "Arthur, I truly respected your father. Listen, I am giving you 10 minutes to think about this. Hand over everything right now, and my troops will back off immediately. I promise I will not make this hard, but if you dare resist us, all 10 great families will completely level this place. We will drown this entire valley in blood." His voice echoes hard. Over 2,000 people clearly hear every single word. Now every eye turns to Arthur, waiting for his answer. After all, his enemies are the 10 absolute strongest families in the entire nation, the most powerful unofficial force outside the actual government. Honestly, they practically control half the resources in the country. Arthur grabs his megaphone from an assistant. He stares coldly down at the massive army swarming the base of the mountain. With an absolutely freezing, decisive tone, our main character spits out his reply. "Take one more step and I will kill without mercy." The battlefield goes dead silent. We could practically hear a pin drop. Everyone stares in pure disbelief at this young guy. Since the very beginning of the 10 great families, passing through endless empires and golden eras, literally no one had ever once dared to speak to them with this kind of disrespect. They control half the nation's wealth, but some 20-something kid just stared them down and declared, "Take one more step, kill without mercy." Morgan turns furious, his dark eyes flaring with absolute murderous intent. The old man exchanges a quick, dark look with the other family leaders. They all nod in agreement, giving the order to march forward. There is zero chance Arthur actually fights 10 great families. Following Morgan's command, the massive army below pulls the bolts on their rifles, marching step by step toward the valley. Seeing this, Arthur just sneers and immediately orders the attack. See, back in his past life, these 10 families completely sold out to the primordial monsters, ruthlessly massacring their very own people just to prove their twisted loyalty to the Monster King. But in this new timeline, Arthur will never let that happen. At his command, his elite troops open fire instantly. Bullets rain down like a meteor shower, ripping into the front line of the enemy army, kicking up heavy dust. This volley is just a tiny warning. The advancing crowd instantly panics, freezing right in their tracks. Morgan and the other leaders are absolutely horrified, totally shocked that Arthur actually pulled the trigger. Suddenly, they face a massive dilemma. If they push forward, blood flows like water, and their untouchable reputation goes straight into the trash. Right then, Morgan gets a frantic phone call. The guy on the line is panicking hard. Patriarch, our mining teams have just been completely surrounded by Arthur's shadow forces. They brought massive amounts of heavy weaponry, and we cannot escape. What do we do? Morgan took a sharp breath, screaming in absolute panic. You're asking me, you fight or I fight. How am I supposed to know what to do? He violently hung up the phone. He looked at the utterly clueless crowd around him, groaning helplessly. Retreat, wait until the Great Tribulation hits. We will return. By that time, our strength will be completely different. The Oneskaki crowd instantly started retreating in total panic. Our guy just watched them run, smirking to himself. Once the 10 great families finally cleared out of Grand Valley, he dropped a cold order for the remaining troops trapped back at the mines. Disarm them completely, detain them all, no matter who they think they are, spare absolutely no one. So the 10 great families didn't just fail miserably, they lost hundreds of men across those 5 mines. For the next few days, our MC just waited. We are all waiting for the exact second the world's spiritual energy wakes up. October 20th, dead of night. The clock hits midnight. He is sitting there in Grand Valley, perfectly still, under his strict orders. Absolutely nobody from North Star went to sleep. Everyone was on standby. Boom, a massive thunderclap shreds through the horizon out of nowhere. Countless white lightning bolts completely rip the night sky apart. Savage winds howl and rain dumps down like a literal waterfall. Absolutely terrifying beast roars start echoing deep through the wild mountains. A super thick aura floods right into Grand Valley. Massive purple clouds roll in, swallowing the whole place. That familiar energy suddenly rushes right into his limbs. He opens his eyes, soaking in that nostalgic feeling. He knows right then, after 8 grueling months of laying out his master plan, the moment he wanted is here. The global spiritual awakening. Meanwhile, all of those perfectly placed treasures go absolutely crazy, absorbing that thick energy. First up is the withered Bodhi seed bracelet, violently sucking in all the surrounding pure energy and blasting out blinding light. That pitch-black crust slowly cracks away, showing off this insane dazzling gold, driven by completely miraculous force. The bracelet actually starts floating, inching its way right toward him. He just lets it sink straight into his forehead. Bodhi recognizes its master. Fusion progress 1%. A totally unexpected voice rings in his head, and he is absolutely hyped. This Bodhi bracelet was pulled from an ancient tomb and literally had its own mind. A full fusion means absolutely insane, unimaginable power. He sits down cross-legged, eyes shut tight, tracking every single change inside his body. Bodhi fusion complete. Progress 100%, currently at sprout stage. Comprehension boosted 10,000 times, as that crazy alert echoes through his mind. Again, he slowly opens his eyes, totally chill. He can literally feel the Bodhi sprout in his head, sucking up energy like a vacuum. Back in his past life, it took him 15 years to even touch the early stage of the divine treasury realm, but in this life, with that Bodhi seed buffing his learning 10,000 times over, it is going to be a massive speedrun. Now, if we look at the power scaling from his past life, it ranks up like this: body tempering, vein forming, then divine treasury, heavenly origin, ascending heaven, plucking heaven, and finally immortal ruler. But right up until a beast chewed him up last time, the absolute highest tier The country was just heavenly origin. Stick with me here, with his crazy prep work he is. Super confident he will blow right past divine treasury, once he fully absorbs that bodhi seed, his whole body erupts in golden light, intersecting. With that purple spiritual energy, it became extraordinarily mysterious. At the exact same time, the major families who prepared in advance, alongside Arthur, didn't sleep either. They were aggressively absorbing that spiritual energy. Morgan sat with his eyes shut tight in a room, completely surrounded by dozens of withered elixirs. Right then, as the spiritual energy flooded the space, they released a massive aura. Morgan didn't hesitate at all. He grabbed 7 or 8 elixirs, shoving them straight into his mouth. A huge, surging wave of spiritual energy flooded his body instantly. His arm muscles bulged wildly, and the wrinkles on his face vanished entirely. In an instant, he felt like he had grown at least 20 years. Younger, bursting with vitality. Opening his eyes, he exhaled, his face shifting right into a confident, cocky smirk. Next up, he was officially entering the body tempering realm. He was thrilled on the inside, but his face twisted with pure maliciousness and absolute contempt. Arthur, I will let you live a few more days. When I break through to the body tempering realm, I will absolutely crush you to death. As soon as the spiritual energy awakened, the 10 major families began laying out their master plans, pooling every single resource so their top geniuses could freely cultivate and level up. Within just 1 hour, these prodigies typically hit the first stage of the body tempering realm, absolutely ecstatic. But as for the ordinary folks without resources, aside from a slight strength boost, there were basically zero changes. Now watch this. Over in the Grand Valley, Arthur wasn't rushing to cultivate and break through. Instead, he carefully inspected the wild transformations brought on by the spiritual energy. The secret realm in the valley hadn't completely revealed itself just yet, but the spiritual energy inside was far denser than outside. Those 6 bronze swords hadn't shown any massive reactions yet. Maybe they just needed to be triggered by the heavenly sword formation and some key element. The body seed had been totally absorbed, boosting his comprehension 10,000 times over. The pair of Bronze Age jade pendants had transformed, holding incredibly dense spiritual energy. Just holding them in his hands continuously nourished his meridians. That millennium-old lightning wood had barely started to evolve. It probably needed a little more time. The meteorite looked completely unchanged, still pitch black as always, but the absolute biggest change, those 10,000 withered elixirs he bought from Stephen, after absorbing the spiritual energy, their dead outer shells completely peeled off, releasing an intense medicinal fragrance. Staring at the elixirs, Arthur didn't hesitate for a second. He grabbed a handful, stuffing them into his mouth. Holding the jade pendants tight, he pulled out his innate body tempering art manual for the body tempering realm and immediately began his cultivation. As he chewed those elixirs, wildly dense spiritual energy erupted inside his body. It felt like chugging ice-cold watermelon juice on a scorching summer day, a freezing sensation piercing right through his heart and liver. Then came the numbness. He could clearly feel what seemed like a tiny knife endlessly scraping against his bones. It made this teeth-aching grinding sound, accompanied by a truly unbearable agonizing pain. His flesh seemed to brutally tear open and then weave itself back together. With every single rebirth, his skin grew significantly tougher. Deep inside, his meridians took countless brutal impacts from the surging energy, causing him blinding pain. See, this so-called body tempering realm relies entirely on cultivation techniques to absorb spiritual energy, constantly tempering his tendons, bones, and flesh, constantly grinding his body down to achieve the capacity to handle raw spiritual energy. If he can endure and complete the remolding process, he will easily break through. But if he cannot endure the pain or gives up halfway, he is stuck in the body tempering realm forever, or worse, he regresses. This body tempering realm has 9 stages, and each one demands surviving absolute agony. only by succeeding through all 9 stages can our guy advance to the vein-forming realm, and based on the knowledge from his past life, the more brutal the pain endured. The body-tempering realm, the more insane the physical upgrade gets. Ultimately, in this early realm, base physical strength can easily vary by hundreds of times, and that base strength decides the upper limit of his future. Cultivation, after all, once the spiritual energy revival hit, the early stages turned into a high martial power bloodbath, about 3 minutes later after enduring wave after wave of violent spiritual energy and following the exact forms of the innate body-tempering art, our MC smoothly hits the second stage of the body-tempering realm. Opening his eyes, he lets out a long breath. His body is literally overflowing with power. He clenches his fist and lightly throws a punch, striking a solid valley cliff. Instantly, the massive rock turns to dust, even shaking the solid ground. He is stunned, just at the first stage of the body-tempering realm, using barely a fraction of his strength, and he has already reached this terrifying level. Back in his past life, even reaching the third stage of the body-tempering realm couldn't even compare. A sharp look of determination flashes in his eyes. He grabs more elixirs, aggressively stuffing them right into his mouth. The medicine dissolves fast, and his spiritual energy absorption just skyrockets. Another brutal round of tempering tendons, bones, and flesh begins. 3 minutes later, he secures the second stage of the body-tempering realm. His raw physical strength shoots up by more than 10 times. Now, he is absolutely confident he could one-shot a massive tiger to death. Ignoring the agonizing pain and total exhaustion, his eyes reveal a purely fanatic zeal. Repeating the process, you can see his back completely drenched in sweat, hair plastered flat to his scalp. The entire surface of his body gets covered in a thick, gross layer of impurities. Finally, he hits the 9th stage of the body tempering realm. He opens his eyes, and a golden light flashes in his pupils, a clear sign of mastering the innate body-tempering art. His entire body brims with explosive strength like an endless, surging river. He secretly sighs in pure admiration. In his past life, it took him 3 years to hit the 9th stage of the body-tempering realm, but now, he just pulled it off in half an hour. Based on his past life's memories, even the absolute fastest geniuses from those great families took 3 days, burning through a massive pile of expensive resources to achieve this. If anyone discovered his speed today, it would completely break the world. After thinking for a second, he grabs more elixirs. He is totally determined to break through to the vein-forming realm to boost his success rate and ensure the spiritual energy won't snap. Without hesitating, he downs 10 whole elixirs, stuffing them right into his mouth. Stick with me. His eyes look completely crazed. He knows those ferocious beasts are descending really soon, only by rapidly getting stronger right now. He couldn't give up. Eyes slammed shut as fresh agony hit again. He gritted his teeth, bearing the torture. Finally, a heavy boom echoed inside his chest, surging raw spiritual energy flooded his 8 extraordinary meridians. Opening his eyes, he was absolutely thrilled. Total success. He just shattered the peak of the body-tempering realm, entering the vein-forming realm, and unlocking the rare innate martial god physique. His base bone density just multiplied by 10,000. Hearing that mental chime, you and I would be totally stunned. This was wild. The innate martial god physique. He never even saw this in his past life, not even the absolute best prodigies from those ancient noble families had pulled this off. Hitting the vein-forming realm wasn't enough for him. He pulled out a specialized manual, the joyous vein scripture, and kept pushing forward using that exact same method. This round took a solid hour of grinding through brutal waves of agony. As the ancient bronze jade pendants in his hands finally shattered, he hit the 9th stage of the vein-forming realm, way different from body-tempering. This new realm triggered some massive physical changes. He felt an aura deep inside, growing hundreds of times stronger than his old life. The sheer width and Capacity of his meridians expanded off the charts. Slowly standing up, he raised his right hand, palm facing the sky. Pure spiritual energy instantly gathered. Right at his command, forming a glowing crescent shape that shrieked loudly. With one casual flick of his wrist, an earth-shattering explosion just went off. The entire valley trembled violently, dropping crushed rocks everywhere and kicking up a massive dust cloud. "Mr. Arthur, are you okay?" His assistant's terrified voice echoed from outside the door. Coughing through dust, he called back, "I'm good," he quietly promised himself. He really needed to be more careful next time. The sheer power of this vein-forming realm was hundreds of times scarier than his past life. Now get this, after hitting the vein-forming realm, our guy decided to hit pause for a bit. Hitting the divine treasury realm didn't just require a new cultivation technique, but also a ridiculous mountain of raw spirit stones. His current elixirs were basically useless now. Even swallowing 10,000 of them at once wouldn't do a single thing. Realizing this, Arthur casually strolled out of the valley. Simon, Uncle Gideon, Hugh, and his crew were standing there waiting so respectfully. "Outside, aren't you guys cultivating?" He looked around, quickly realizing they hadn't trained at all, just playing guard right outside the zone. "Our absolute top priority is keeping you safe, sir," Hugh answered with zero hesitation. Even though all this new spiritual energy made him restless, his blood practically boiling, he still chose to stand guard. Arthur felt genuinely moved by that. These guys were fiercely loyal, ride or die in his past life, and exactly the same today. He pulled a giant handful of elixirs from his pocket, tossing them over. "Hurry up and train, hit whatever realm you possibly can. No wasting them, just eat them all." Hugh and the crew stared back at him, totally overwhelmed with intense emotion. Even old Uncle Gideon couldn't wipe the massive joy off his face. Without a single word, they grabbed the elixirs, shoved them right into their mouths, and quickly sat down to cultivate. Arthur then picked out a few basic body tempering manuals, handing them out to really speed up their progress. Simon, just hold out for a bit, call up the mines and check on the situation over there. "Yes, sir." Simon, he dropped his training without a second thought, stepped away to make those calls. Meanwhile, our guy stood halfway up the mountain, just watching the night sky. He knew it, tonight was the start of absolute chaos. About 15 minutes later, Simon came back with the report. "Sir, I checked in with the mines. They felt the natural disasters too, same massive surge of weird energy. People are actually starting to cultivate with it right now. But the mines themselves, no big changes yet." Our MC just nodded. Spirit stones take time to grow, and based on his past life memories, the first wave of this global energy revival was totally predictable. Big families grabbed the lead first, then the artifact collectors, then the rich elites, and lastly, normal folks, by day 2 of the awakening. Right after the natural disasters and weird weather, things got bad. Pure chaos. You and I both know what happens when people get sudden power. Thousands of newly awakened body-tempering fighters hit the streets, demanding brutal payback. Everyone holding a grudge suddenly let loose, like wild horses off the leash. Total reckless madness, so the government had to step up with a new squad. Cut to a Capitol conference room, a sharp, silver-haired guy in a military uniform. He laid it out to keep order and control these rogue fighters.